Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Today we have my wife's 2010 Lexus RX350 here in the shop, and the complaint this time is, and I've actually just did the brakes on this thing like 4,000 or 5,000 miles ago. I mean, hardly any mileage on them at all. They've been working great, but the complaint is that we're getting a slight vibration under light braking, and you feel it through the steering wheel, you feel it in the brake pedal mostly. But it's a little bit of a pulsation telling me that we've got a warped rotor situation. So I asked my wife, I was like, well, did anyone jump out in front of you, and you had to jam on the brakes real hard? She was like, oh yeah, that did happen like a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, okay, well, that's probably what it is. Our brakes were probably completely cold, and someone, you know how people are on their cell phones and stuff, they'll jump out in front of you in traffic. And if you're in a big car like this, it's a pretty heavy car. It takes quite a bit to get it stopped. So she had to jump on the brakes to avoid a wreck. And so now I have to do the brake rotors on this thing. Because I went ahead and put new pads and stuff on it, all new brake rotors, pads, everything, less than 5,000 miles ago. I'm not going to change the pads. I looked at the pads on the other side. I've already taken it apart, and I wanted to show you guys. This is not really how to do the brake job on this car. This is more about how to diagnose, warped brake rotors and what to do about it. But on this particular car, I wanted to show you a couple of little weird things that you're going to run across. And if you're not prepared for it, it'll ruin your day. For one, over here, this is the caliper nut or bolt that you have to take out to remove the brake caliper and to work on it. But as you see here, with light on it, there's another secondary nut back there. Now sometimes I find that these things will break right loose and you don't even need a backup wrench in here. Other times you'll just spin and spin and spin on this outer nut, and basically what's happening is this inside one is spinning. Okay, so you say, okay, no problem. Just go get a wrench and stick it on there, which is exactly what I tried to do. But the wrench will not fit this way, thickness wise. It will not fit inside of there. So I could go over to my grinder and grind down a good wrench, and I'm not even sure this is the correct size. I'm just grabbed this for an example. I could grind down a proper wrench that would fit in there. I could go over to Lexus or Toyota and buy a specialty wrench, probably what they want you to do. Or, lucky for me, I've done this before, so I found my old made in the USA proto crescent wrench. It's a nice strong crescent wrench, but it's more importantly, it's very thin profile like that. So it will actually slide right in there once you get it adjusted properly, and then you can hold that while you put your 14 on the back here and break that loose. So once you get those broke loose, you're going to be like, okay, well, how do I get this caliper off of here? And mine on the other side was stuck on there. I had to actually take a screwdriver and pry that out a little bit, and once it came loose, it slipped off and the brake pad stayed in with this caliper bracket. So if you're taking the rotors off like I am, you will have to remove this caliper bracket. And the bolts are right there. I'm trying to get it right in the middle of the screen. There's the top one, and there's another one down here that you can see. You have to remove those two bolts, and on the other side they were really in there. I had to use a hammer on a wrench just to break the thing free, just to get it moving. But you do have to remove that so that you can pull the rotor off. And one other weird thing that I came across, now it's not going to be a problem this time for me because mine haven't been on there very long, and so my rotors are not seized onto the hub. But what can happen is the rotor will get seized onto the hub, and if that happens, you have to go buy a couple of the appropriate size metric bolts to fit these holes, and they are metric. I've got some around here somewhere. I'm not going to need them on this job this time, but the first time I did this, that really threw me for a loop, because I was ready to pull the rotors off, and I couldn't get them off because they were seized on there. I even tried banging them with a rubber mallet on the back, and they were not coming off. You have to have those bolts to remove this thing. It basically acts like a puller, or a kind of like a press or something. It presses that bolt up against that and it pops it out off of there, and then you can pull it out. Of course, all of this has to be removed first. So anyways, guys, this is not necessarily a how to do your own brake job type deal, but This is more like for the guys that have done a few brake jobs in the past and think that they're going to just come up here on this Lexus and, you know, knock it out real quick. I just want you guys to see this. You still can get it done fairly quickly, but you need to be prepared for especially this thing right here, needing a backup wrench and those metric bolts that you'll need in there. So look that up on the Google. I'm sure you can look up brake job for a Lexus 2010 and they'll tell you what size those bolts are that you need to buy from the hardware store. So anyways, guys, good luck with you. And you know, most importantly, when you're doing brake work and stuff like this, the most important thing is, you know, be extra safe about how you've got the car jacked up and on the stands and stuff. And I'm assuming you already know how to jack the car up and put it on jack stands, but you know, always do that when you're going to be reefing on the side of the car like this, or if you're going to be, you know, hammering on some really stiff bolts with your head underneath there, because you do not want this thing coming down and ruining your day. So you know, once you know some of these little things, it's not so bad working on these cars like this. But when you're working on a specialty car like a Lexus or something like that, I think they do a lot of this stuff like, you know, where you have to have that specialty wrench right there. You know, that kind of stuff is to scare off the normal DIY guy. He gets in there, he tries to take the bolt loose, he can't get it out, then he ends up taking it to Lexus and spending, you know, or Toyota, and spending $300 to $500 for them to do the job that he could have done for 30 bucks. Oh, and by the way, the last place I'm aware of that turns rotors still is O'Reilly's. So I'm fixing to go over there and give them some business. They told me it's $15 per rotor. So I'll leave you guys with that. And until then, we'll see you next time.